So, what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about your story.
Okay.
Sadly, I know you don't like to talk about it, or you're very
No,
modest.
I am talking more happiness, about happiness part.
Okay.
This is Miriam Durrani, a name you might be familiar with.
All work I did in Afghanistan is not the Taliban don't like.
In Kandahar, she opened schools and libraries, even started a radio station, all for women and girls. But that work also brought unwanted attention, death threats, attempted assassinations. She even had to go into hiding for 6 months, and people would always ask,
Why you not leave your country and your city? You stayed under this danger. And I say, because I know one day I am going to die. I'm not scared from die.
In 2021, the U.S. withdrew troops from the country, and the Taliban took back power. This time, those death threats didn't just include her.
And told me, we are kill you, we are kill your families, and we are find you. And a lot of my family members and my friend, they are coming and they are telling me, Miriam, you need to leave.
It was finally time to go. But getting out of Afghanistan was nearly impossible. First, she had to travel 8 hours north to the capital city, Kabul.
Unfortunately, we are see the Kabul governor go fall.
That's where she and her family head out for weeks, waiting for the right time to rush the airport, one of the few places still under U.S. guard. After almost getting caught a few times by the Taliban, they finally made it.
There's a lot of people inside the airplane. Nobody sitting in the chair, all sitting in the airplane floor.
In 2021, the year Miriam escaped, more than 2.7 million Afghans were displaced and qualified for refugee status. And that's what it meant being a refugee in the U.S. Someone fleeing war or standing up for women's rights, even at the cost of their own life. That all changed earlier this year.
One of President Trump's first executive orders, preloaded for Inauguration Day, suspended the U.S. refugee admissions program.
But there is one group Trump is welcoming, white South Africans.
Welcome. Welcome to the United States of America. It is such an honor for us to receive you here today.
We are don't choice it. We don't have choices. We are forced to leave my country. And other people have time for say goodbye. We don't have time for say goodbye.
Over the past year, there may be no pathway to citizenship that has changed more than that of refugees. I'm Jimmy Gutierrez, and this is Status Pending, a podcast from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. And here we look at how our immigration system works and doesn't, and the impact it has on the people who are going through it. So, what did it mean to be a refugee? What's changed over this past year? And what does all that mean for people like Miriam?
Okay, I'm Somali, so we're like Italians. We talk with our hands.
There's a lot of this.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, my name is Uma Abdi, and I am the Refugee Program Director.
Uma's a little over 5 feet, fashionable. Hijab's always complimenting her fit. And she's got that auntie who runs things energy, which is basically what she does at Hanan Relief Group in Milwaukee. Earlier this year, they were called Hanan Refugee Relief Group, but decided to rebrand to soften the target on their backs.
The moment that Trump stepped into office, the immediate suspension of the refugee resettlement program, and then along with that, the funding kind of just went away immediately. And so as an agency, that was like $500,000 overnight just lost.
On Trump's first day in office, he froze the refugee relief program and foreign aid. 2 days later, 12,000 refugees were in a sort of limbo, already cleared to enter the U.S., stuck in holding countries, locked out. 2 days after that, agencies like Hanan received stop work orders.
We knew that we could not just close the doors and say, we can no longer serve you, you know, because when these refugees come to this country, the first person they see is someone from our agency that picks them up at the airport. And so they form that connection where you're literally their lifeline. You're the person that they come to for everything.
Resettlement agencies like Hanan are taxpayer funded. The government sets a budget, around $2,400 per refugee, and agencies use this money to help refugees with things like housing, food, clothes, basically getting their life started. The catch is that all of this has to happen in the first 90 days. But before any of this happens, before the 90 days, or traveling to a new country, refugees need to get approved.
And so they have to register themselves under UNHCR to become a refugee.
UNHCR is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and you are going to hear a lot about them here. They are basically the doorway for people seeking refugee status. They approved people like Miriam and so many other Afghan refugee status at that time. They also vet applicants, the most thorough process of all immigrants entering this country.
When they mention that they come from a certain area where a certain group is being persecuted, they don't just take that at face value. They investigate. They make sure, even the dialect that they're speaking, they will have somebody interpret and make sure that the dialect matches where this person is coming from. So it's a very thorough process, and they go through many medical checks and medical examinations. And so it's a very, very thorough process.
This process kind of formalized 45 years ago with former President Carter's Refugee Act of 1980. That's when presidents started setting the total number of refugees allowed into the U.S. Back during the Biden administration, that ceiling was 125,000. This year, President Trump set the ceiling at 7,500, a 94% drop, the fewest refugees ever, and a number that is reserved almost exclusively for white Afrikaners from South Africa. Afrikaners are the same group of people who invented apartheid, that brutal system of racial segregation and subjugation that was law of the land in South Africa for over 50 years. President Trump has had a lot to say about the recent perceived persecution of these Afrikaners.
Yeah, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspaper.
There is no genocide happening in South Africa. The country's high court and even prominent Afrikaners have discredited claims of targeted killings and land grabs. Today, white Afrikaners still own over 70% of the country's farmland, hold more than 60% of the top corporate jobs, all while making up just 7% of the country's population. Uma says something else you should know about this process is that there is a lot of baked-in racism.
Depending on where they're coming from what we have seen at Hanan, it can be anywhere from 5 to 20 years. A lot of our refugees that come from the continent of Africa, their process is much longer. We've resettled single mothers that have been in refugee camps 18 years, that long to go through the refugee process, and let's say Ukrainians after, the Ukrainian and Russian war can apply to be a refugee and be brought within less than 2 years.
This process, being resettled, also isn't cheap. The airfare out of their home country and the airfare out of their holding country all gets billed, sometimes with interest. For someone like Miriam, who came with 5 family members, some children, some elders, that's approximately $10,000 worth of debt just to get started.
To add to another layer of it is like, in the process, there's a lot of people trying to take advantage of them. It's not just, the vetting process, but it's other third parties that are also trying to profit off of, these individuals.
Here's how it works. When a refugee flees a country, like Miriam did from Afghanistan, she was sent to a holding country, Qatar in her case. Now, she's in contact with UNHCR, but she's working with a local refugee agency in Qatar. Uma's saying that those agencies in those holding countries have very little oversight.
So we would hear from our families like, I had to pay this amount of money to find out my flight's information. So they've been approved, they've gotten the flight information. This person at this office won't give it to them until they pay them a certain amount of money.
Life as a refugee is hard enough. Starting in debt is the American way. Right up until Trump's executive order, Hanan was still resettling folks, but now they basically pivoted to becoming a service provider, helping out with things like green card legal services, food distribution, and even maternal health classes. This is where I met Sanam, a refugee from Afghanistan.
But Hanan also, I think, is good because these have a many program for also for the child, for the woman.
We're not using her real name for fear of retaliation. But she was one of the last arriving refugees in Wisconsin, coming with her husband and 9-year-old just days after Trump's election victory last November.
The people live here in US or any country was safe, didn't understand. I don't want anybody understand me because the refugee was not good life. Because the normal life for us was a dream.
Currently, Sanam is 2 months pregnant. Her family is originally from Afghanistan, but she moved when she was very young, living in Iran most of her life as a refugee. Almost 10 years ago, after marrying her husband, living in Iran, and unable to return back to Afghanistan, they applied for refugee status. After waiting for a few years, they were accepted into the program. What came next was another waiting period, waiting to get placed into a holding country, a go-between until she could finally get resettled. It's a combination of factors of how UNHCR decides on which country to send certain people. Safety, proximity, cultural overlaps, they all play a part here. So Sanam and family moved from Iran and somehow ended up in Malaysia.
The life in Malaysia is also was hard because the Malaysia didn't accept the refugee.
Sanam says they weren't legally allowed to work in Malaysia or travel or even send their young son to school. That was until one day she found a school for refugees.
This school was a Christian school. When I sent him, I said I'm Muslim, if possible, because they said before they start the class, we pray with all the children. But I say, because I'm Muslim, if possible, you let my son out and you pray. But he said, we cannot do it. But I say, it's okay.
This was the most mild indignity. Soon her son was coming home with marks on his hands. Then it happened again. He was being hit by his teacher.
One time I said nothing because I cannot find any school near to me. But another time, my son come say, Mom, you do it again. But when I go and tell to teacher, he said, all the family don't have any problem. You just have a problem because all was a refugee. They don't have any choice.
Sanam pulled her son from school and started homeschooling. At the same time, her husband had finally found work. His challenge was that they were considered, quote, illegal immigrants. Sure, they were placed in Malaysia, but they were still waiting on permanent refugee status, meaning that police could and would routinely stop, detain refugees until they offered up whatever money they had. And this was their life for 9 years. 9 years living in limbo in Malaysia, waiting for their number to be called by UNHCR. They got so desperate, they started to call the agency every day. Then last November, they finally heard back. And it wasn't good. Everything had fallen through, their paperwork and their request, and the family would be stuck in Malaysia.
But that time, we just all crying, also my husband crying, because we think this cancel, because we know that when the President Trump come, because he don't want to refugee.
2 days after that call, they got another call. UNHCR again. That previous call? Logistical error. Their flight and placement was secured, and they were officially heading to the U.S.
We are so happy, but we're not sure about that.
I asked Sanam what was her biggest challenge moving to the U.S. She looked at me, slowly smiled, and said, nothing. And with all that she's been through, I get it. Wisconsin is middle of the pack for the number of refugees resettled. Over the past few years, that's been between 1,500 and 2,000 refugees per year, mostly from Myanmar and the Congo. None so far this year. Back in 2021, when the state was still actively resettling people, Miriam Durrani, the women's rights activist from Afghanistan, and her family ended up in Wisconsin. It was a long trip from Kandahar to Kabul to Qatar and eventually to the Midwest. She knows about the challenges of starting over and says it's not all about the money.
Thing is, first is language. Second, you don't have anybody. You don't know anybody is here for ask support. I know the agency caseworker, they are try help you, but you need friends. A lot of the people, they are separate from the family, like children stay behind, or wife stay behind, or husband stay behind. yeah, I see they are more depressed. They are more have problem.
A lot of focus on refugees and their lives is trauma-centered. The path that folks had to go through to get to a safer place, to get to a safer country, to get their family to safety, it's hard to comprehend. But people like Miriam, in that process, also had to give up everything. She was the center of the universe for so many girls in Afghanistan. Not just an inspiration, but someone tangible. She was right there next to them, working with them every day. And she says that losing meaning to your life is as cratering as leaving it all behind.
This is time I lose all my hope. I am very broken because all my dream gone. Everything I make from zero is gone.
Then something changed for Miriam. A friend recommended she visit Hanan, see what they're doing, the programming they offer, and she quickly fell in love. She thought, I can help here. And she got to practice her English every day. She says that her Google Translate was always open on her phone. Today, she's the culture program manager at the center, working with people like Sanam every day.
Now I'm not feeling I'm just belong to my community. Now I'm start working with Rohingya, Congolese. I see a lot of different people with different language, but I'm feeling it's a blessing from God for me. I can help not just my community. I can help other people need help.
The number of refugees resettled in the U.S. is ultimately set by the president, and who knows what to expect in the coming years, or what obtaining citizenship will look like for new arrivals who just beat the clock like Sanam, or how long agencies like Hanan can keep their doors open even after a rebrand. For now, their status is pending. Status Pending is produced by WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, part of the NPR network. Our team includes
Audrey Nowakowski,
Excret Nunez,
Emily Files,
Catherine Kokel,
Maria Peralta Arellano,
Valeria Navarro Villegas,
Samia Said,
and me, Jimmy Gutierrez. Music in this episode is by Blue Dot Sessions. Subscribe to the Status Pending podcast for more stories of people in Wisconsin navigating the U.S. immigration system.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.